Okay, well, we'll just go ahead and start. And Mr. Osbon, if we can have your opening statement.
Sure, thank you, Tim. I'd like to thank Gary, Gil, everyone who was involved with getting this event together. You know, it's funny how circumstances happen, but what a great crowd to show up. So it's great to see each of you here too. I'm Rick Osbon. Lessie, you can probably give this for me at this point. We've done this so much, I know. I'm Rick Osbon. I run Osbon's Laundry and Cleaners in town. I grew up in Aiken. It's a shame we're not in Crosland Park right now, Gary, because I could say Osbon Drive right there on the back of it's where I grew up. I built my legs up on a bicycle, climbing up Aldrich, riding from my house on Osbon Drive to the cleaners where both my parents worked. I remember in the 5th grade, they were both working, so I'd wake up in the summers and have my Pop-Tart and ride. Back then, I'd always have to call first, but you only had to dial 5 numbers. Anybody remember that when you didn't have to dial the 6-4? So I think maybe 14 minutes was the best time I made on it. That was pretty good. I probably couldn't do that today. I love Aiken. I love this community. Crosland Park is certainly an area that's special to me also. I lived there until 1986 when I moved out to go to college, and my folks lived there until probably the early 2000s. But just to tell you a little bit more about myself, I run Osbon's Laundry and Cleaners. It was a business that was formed in 1948 by my father and his father. They didn't have the promise of success, but they did have the promise of opportunity. And now my wife, Angie, and I have 3 kids, and that's why I'm running. I want them to have that same promise. I want your children and your grandchildren to have that same promise. When somebody graduates from USC Aiken, which we were at our last forum, and they get their degree, or they graduate from Aiken Technical College, I want them to have that same opportunity. We'll talk a lot today, and you'll hear this theme, but I believe in lower taxes. I believe in making Aiken a business-friendly community and creating jobs, safe streets, and well-maintained streets and infrastructure. I look forward to talking to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out this evening. I want to thank our sponsors. In addition to Norman, your opening in prayer, this is the first session I've been to where prayer started the whole process, and that's what we have to do in terms of making sure we're on the right foot as we start our plans for the future. My name is Lessie Price, and I'm running for mayor. I've lived in this town for more than 50 years. My husband is a native Aikenite. I have 5 children, 2 of them of which are in the audience, 1 who lives in Crosland Park currently. They were born here and reared here, and they're still here. I just want 1 to leave so I can have some place to travel right now, but they're still in Aiken. I serve currently as manager of governmental affairs and community relations for a company called AECOM. It is an international company. We're in 160 countries, and we have 100,000 employees. Our net worth is about close to $20 billion. And I'm at the corporate office downtown where a lot of business is being conducted. We have a lot of people coming into town from China, Japan, you name it, being in 160 countries. And that growth impacts the people that are coming in town, help the businesses downtown. I've managed a lot of budgets at Savannah Riverside, budgets that deals with employees that worked for me, with me. We worked as a team, whether it dealt with nuclear initiatives, educational initiatives. I've been there in terms of managing those budgets. What is Aiken looking for in the future? I have to talk about my past, having served 28 years on council. One of the first things that I was interested in, okay, I'll get to that later.
Okay. Let's go to our first question. And since you were on a roll, I'll let you address this one first. And it's pretty appropriate tonight because we've relocated, but this is a question submitted by someone who lives in Crosland Park, And they say that, as I noted when I was over there just a little while ago, that there are a lot of issues with the streets in Crosland Park. We've been talking about the streets in other parts of the city a lot recently. But specifically tonight, for those of you who weren't over there, the street is dug up and a power pole was knocked over while they were working on the street. What would you do to improve the street situation over in Crosland Park?
The improvements are coming. Now, let me just say to you that all of those streets are not city-owned. Some of those streets are in the state system. They would be working on the streets. When I say they, the Department of Transportation would be working on those streets right now, but as it gets colder, I'm hearing from our city staff that they are postponing this because of the weather until the spring of 2016. So some of those streets you could expect improvements sometime around then. But I contend that it is warm weather right now, and we can at least do something in the next few months. But I think the Department of Transportation is thinking that they get started, they can't complete it. It will be create some greater problems as we move from a month from now into the winter months. But the appearance look terrible. I don't mind saying. But this is not the only area that we need some street improvements as well. But this is one of them that I know that some relief is coming to that area.
Crosland Park streets, what are your thoughts over there?
I mean, Leslie said it exactly right. I think it's being addressed, probably not as quick as if you lived there that you wanted to address. There was some infrastructure issues. I know on Aldridge at the bottom there was some sewer backing up and some issues that were worked, and that's why those roads are torn up a lot of the way they are. But I know they are scheduled to be resurfaced. A lot of the roads are state. I would hope that we could even make a push to see more sidewalks along Crosland Park, because there's a lot of pedestrians, a lot of people who rely on walking as a main mode of transportation. And I think it would be safer if we could have the curb and the sidewalk also. But I think those plans are certainly moving forward. And I'm sure everyone on City Council would advocate for that too, for safety of the citizens.
Okay. And let me just add, Tim, do you mind? We have an example, a clear example in Tool Hill, where we did the street curbing and the sidewalks and the lighting. And certainly for those of you who've gone to Tool Hill, you see the improvements that we've done there. We want to model that in Crosland Park.
Okay, thank you.
And I lived in Tool Hill.
All right, Mr. Osbon, and I haven't heard this in any of the other forums, but obviously we know the form of government here is a weak mayor form of government. We've spent a lot of time talking to mayoral candidates. As a weak mayor, how do you make a difference? How do you swing a council when you're one vote?
Mayor Odell Weeks served in the same system. He didn't have a problem swaying a council. I think just your voice being heard and taking that leadership role, and working with council also. I mean, I think there's a lot of things I can just speak. I haven't served on city council. I served on the county council, but there were a lot of things that were worked out. We had committee forms of government, which I really liked. I'd love to see the city go to some sort of a committee form of government. I think there's a lot of things right now that are trying to be resolved during a meeting that could certainly, if there were people brought to the table, the bike paths, for example, that situation could have been handled and brought forward in a different manner, bringing everybody to the table, letting them know what the assets and what the benefits of those bike paths were, instead of kind of waking up. There just wasn't good communication on that particular issue. But you know, I think the mayor takes a strong role of leadership and sets the vision. But I mean, it certainly takes the vote of council to move it forward. But the mayor's seat certainly has a strong voice.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Price?
Well, let me just add that I made the motion to come to some resolution with the bike pathway that ended up being a compromise, and I think it's going to work pretty well with the affected communities. But a weak mayor. I've served on council, you heard me say 28 years. Mayor Weeks served for 40 years. Mayor Kavanaugh served for 24 years. I contend that we cannot, things have changed. Granted, there's 7 members on council, each one has a single vote. Nothing can pass unless you can count to 4. That's the majority. But times are different. I have brought mayors into this town. The mayor of Orangeburg, the mayor of Idaho, and a number of other mayors have visited this town. I've talked to the mayor of Columbia. I'm very good friends with the mayor of Charleston, all those mayors. And certainly I see the mayor as an ambassador. The mayor has to complement the city manager. The things that we have coming, which is why we're hiring the business vitality manager. There are so many things coming into that office as we speak right now. I don't know how our city manager or our assistant city manager completes their job, the task that we are paying them to do. So as your next mayor, I intend to be a strong advocate. I expect, and I will do it on my own dime, I expect to travel to Washington. I expect to travel to neighboring cities to see what will be done, what is being done. So granted, it's one vote, but I need to be bringing ideas into the city, sharing with the city manager, sharing it with businesses. That is what I expect to do in my weak mayor's position.
Okay, very good. During your answer just now, you brought up compromise on the bike lane issue. The bike lanes, the bypass vote, a number of things over the last few years. The council, sometimes I would say that members have remarked that it's compromise. Others in the community have seen it as marching down a path and then encountering a crowd and turning the other direction. Do you think that's a good characterization, or is there a way for the council to pick its path and stick to it on major issues?
Tim, I'm a pretty frank person, and so are you.
Yes.
And you're being polite to me. Let me just say that we can say that it is the coward's way out, and and that's the way I feel. When I look at the bypass and the pressures that came with, and the threats with folks saying, "City Council, if you pass this, this is what will happen," and many of them were threatened with not receiving support in the next election if they supported the expansion of the bypass. Business people were not happy with this. And let me just tell you some mistakes. And I think that when we make mistakes, we've got to admittedly say it. And let me just tell you where we went wrong. The business people embraced the widening of the bypass. Where we made our mistake with City Council, we took a vote and rescinded the decision to expand it. We should have gone back to our business folks and said, "Listen, business people, this is what we're going to do. Let me get your feedback." And that was not done. We were so busy to get rid of the problem, to get rid of the 200 plus, 300 plus people breathing down our necks saying, "We don't want this, we're going to threaten to sue you," and all those things. And we had so many other things on the table that it was an easy problem to get rid of and move on.
Remind us of your vote.
I voted to not expand the bypass.
Okay. Answer the same question. Has the council turned itself around too much, and how do you keep it from doing that? How do they stick by the courage of their convictions?
Lessie and I both were on the, that's the first time we've actually got to say your name in a debate or a forum. That's great. Lessie and I were both on the Aspirational City Tour. We went with the Chamber of Commerce, and we saw 3 cities, not that we wanted to be exactly like, but learn from. And I think we took a lot of things out of it. We saw Raleigh, we saw Winston-Salem, and Greenville. I think what we learned from each one of those places was that they developed a plan that the community was behind. And I think that plan gave the elected officials courage. And I think it does. If elected mayor, I want to have the community come together, have visioning processes, and get everybody's input, and let's come up with a plan for our city to move forward. And I think just having that will help go a long way for the issues you're talking about, where you get a room when you have 12 people who are speaking against it. 12 people seems like an awful lot of people when you're sitting up on a council. I know that. If you get 10 calls, you think everybody in the city is against it. But you know, it's really 10 people, it's really 12 people. I think we need a plan in the city of Aiken. I think we need to know where we're going, and I think that would go a long ways to bolstering support and courage among elected officials.
I put the incumbent on the spot. What would your vote have been on the bypass?
I supported the bypass.
What would your vote have been?
I supported. I would have voted yes on it.
Okay.
But I didn't have.
I
I didn't. You know. I would have supported the bypass. I would have. Yes.
You would have voted to continue with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Let me just say to you that another factor is, too, the equestrian community had some concerns as well in terms of impact. And I'm glad to hear my opponent say that he would support it. It is different when you're sitting up there and you've got 200 to 300 people breathing down your neck. And one of the charming things about this, Tim, is that I've got a record. I've got a record. The first time I voted to support it, the second time with all the meetings that was held, it's a different perspective when you're actually put to the test by the voters in front of you. I've got a record. I stand by my record. I know what I've done. Could it have been done better? Yes.
Okay. Let's, and appreciate your candor on that.
Thank you.
Let's talk about something that you're on the record on and you're on the record opposing, which is the 1 cent hospitality tax. And Ms. Price mentioned a few moments ago about the business vitality director that will be hired. So basically we'll frame this question first to you around, if you don't agree with the tax, want to see it rolled back, by extension, do you not agree with the position it's funding? And just
sure, it's a valid position. It's something the city the size of Aiken should have. It acts as a position to connect the business community and our elected officials. I don't have any problem with the position. I'd rather see it funded out of our existing budget. And you know, listen, my whole point with the hospitality tax, it moves so fast. I mean, in a month we had it. You know, I don't think it really gave room for input from the citizens when we put it in place, and I just think that they should have had more input. When I was on county council, we passed the first capital project sales tax. Now that raises upward of $5 million a year for the city's portion. Okay. And I think the hospitality tax is probably going to come in higher than what they're estimating. It'll probably be 1.2 to 1.4 million that it raises. But when we put that capital project sales tax in, I went to Kiwanis clubs, I went to Rotaries, we spoke, because it went to a referendum and it was voted on by the citizens. And there was a commitment as to what that money was going to be spent on as well. So you knew exactly what infrastructure projects or what road projects. Each town in our county had something on it too. But there was a commitment and basically a contract between the voters and the council. The first one passed, which was good for the county. It was good for the city, and I just wish we'd have had more input as far as the hospitality tax went. But you know, the vitality manager or the business vitality manager, it's a valid position. It's certainly. I think it's needed right now because I think council really needs to hear the voices of a lot of the businesses. So.
Okay.
I think that we did an ample amount of time in terms of venting and seeing whether this was a good tax or not. And as I talk to people about the hospitality tax, and I have been told that there are voters out there that will not support me because of the hospitality tax. We're talking about, you all, if you eat a $25 meal, it's a 1% tax, it's 25 cents. Eat a $50 meal, it's 50 cents. Philip Mary, who is my counterpart on city council, made a motion to approve the to approve the tax. I seconded his motion. If any tax can be a good tax, this is a good tax. We've raised over $200,000 or more already. We expect to raise 1.2, 1.4, as my opponent has said, this year. And let me tell you the first 2 months how we've used that tax. TD Bank, Starbucks, we needed infrastructure work done for those businesses coming in. We used that money to provide that need. Our airport, we had a chance of getting $2.2 million doing some improvements in our airport. We had to match monies, FAA funds, of roughly $135,000. We used the hospitality tax for those funds. We managed to get $2.2 million that we did not have in our budget for the airport. At our last meeting, $70,000. We're using it for aesthetic charm for our community. Other uses that I plan to recommend, I recommend it for the hospitality tax, is small business investment. We have a need for small businesses downtown. And what I'm proposing is using some of those funds for small business and then giving them an incentive as well for startup. Okay. And tax relief for 1 year.
All right. Well, let's stick with the hospitality tax for just a second. And you mentioned several projects that have come up. And we'll start with you and then go back to you. Were those part of the planned expenditures? Is there a solid plan in your mind? And what is your proposal so that we know that there's a plan for these dollars?
Well, they fall under the categories of which we stated in our tax. So all these fall under enterprise, tourism, those kinds of things. Okay. So we can use those for those purposes, the funds for those purposes. One of the things, though, Tim, that I've said to our city manager, it is imperative that we become transparent with how these funds are being used. And in every location, though the first two funds went to the south side in our town, we need a sign that says your hospitality tax at work. So people can visibly see that, hey, that's what I'm supporting at the airport. That's what I'm supporting, downtown area. That's what I'm supporting with these taxes. And that is what I'd like done, so that transparently people can see how these taxes are being used. Right now, unless I say something or we place it in our newsletter, people don't actually know how the taxes are being used. Okay.
Rick, if elected and if unsuccessful in repealing the tax, do you have a plan, or do you believe there should be a specific plan for how to spend those dollars?
I mean, yeah, I do actually. I think lowering the business license fee would be a great use for it. I mean, it's a revenue neutral net tax, which means we're replacing one tax or fee with another. So I think that would be a great way of using it. It would not only help existing businesses, but also be an encouragement for people who are looking for entrepreneurs or people who are looking to start a business in the city. So I think that would be a very reasonable use for it.
Okay. Have you run the numbers on that? Do the numbers work on reducing one?
Well, you would just do it. You would just do it proportionate. I mean, if you're raising 1.2 million in it, you would whatever proportion the business license is. I mean, I don't think you could do away with it completely. I think the business license accounts for about 13% of our budget. Okay. So I don't think you could do completely away with it, but I think you could make enough that it would be substantial, especially for businesses that are teetering on whether they can keep their doors open or not. I think it could really be a help.
Okay. Ms. Price, what plans do you have for attracting young professionals to Aiken?
What attracts young professionals, one is jobs. Second is housing that they can afford. And thirdly, having the amenities for them to enjoy. We have at the university more than 3,000 students. I'd like to see a count on the number of those students coming downtown. We have in our household, we have 5 children in this town. It's been pretty tough to keep them here. And the reason for that is they do not see the downtown area having much to offer. My children, though they're young adults, escape from here during the weekend. They're in Augusta, they're in Columbia, Charlotte, Charleston, because there's more life, there's more vitality. One of the things, and I'm going to shift, so I think housing, let me just say housing, because I have a son that's living with us right now and he wants to move out. But he said, Mom, I can't afford to pay $800, $900 a month for rent. So they're looking for something that's more neutral than the maybe $700, $750, but they want it downtown. So to do that, we need investors that will build apartments or condos for young people that they can have that in that price range. And to do that, I think the city has to put in some money and incentives for these investors to come here and to want to invest. And I'm confident that we have some of these investors already here. So what is my plan? Creating a business council. Business council with a lot of stakeholders around the table, potential investors. We have smart people in this community who've been around, who've traveled the world. They know where these investors are. because they sit amongst the Fortune 500 team that invest in so many things. So I'm looking for those investors. And Tim, let me just say that when I look at Savannah Riverside, when I'm talking about jobs, that is an opportunity. We have a prime national lab there. We don't talk about our national lab enough. And rallying around that lab and giving them the level of support and investment they need. And there are ways that I have to do that based on my relationship with the Department of Energy team in Washington. But secondly, that lab, working closely with our university, can help to create some opportunities there. Hanford, my company, for example, is in Washington State, and they're in a number of locations, but the two that I'm thinking of right now, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. At Hanford, there's a contract that we have. It's worth about $300 million, but 70% of their businesses are small businesses that live in the community that reinvest in the town. The reason that they have that is because of the contract that they have signed with the Department of Energy. It states that certain amount of this business have to go towards small businesses. That contract is coming up for discussion and renewal. We need to make sure that somehow have the discussion, how can we get the same thing in the contract here at Savannah Riverside to bring jobs here?
Bring young professionals to Aiken.
Jobs. Jobs is a priority on that. If elected, my #1 job would be to bring jobs to Aiken. Work with economic development recruiters, professionals, regionally and statewide, Department of Commerce. It's important for the mayor to be the advocate and voice for that. Certainly, I certainly would be, and I'd be on the phone on a very regular basis. They'd probably get tired of the calls, but we'd keep calling, because if there's a discussion of whether it be manufacturing, whether it be tech, we need to be involved and we need to be considered in that. Also locally, I mean, such a small portion of business now and growth is in the small business sector. I think it's very important that the city review our policies and procedures. And, you know, I mean, one thing I've talked a lot about is that we need to put, I want to put business leaders, community leaders, I want a review of those policies, and the ones that are not conducive to bringing business and new businesses into town, we need to change. Instead of giving people a list of obstacles that they need to overcome, we need to say, how can we help you? How can we make this happen? If they need to go walk to another department, we need to walk them down there. We need to pull everybody together in the same room, but we need to let people know that we are open to business.
Okay, very good.
Can I go back?
Sure.
I like what you're doing. This is good.
Good. I'm glad.
That's really good.
I should run.
No, I like this kind of dialogue with this forum. Cybersecurity, Fort Gordon, 4,700 jobs, just down the road. They filled about 2,000, and I'm saying this because I've already talked to the folks at Fort Gordon. They've already filled about 2,000 jobs, but there's 2,700 that they have to fill. What an opportunity for jobs. A couple months ago, I saw a group of people here in our downtown area, and they were looking around. And I've seen more folks coming because Aiken offers some amenities that some of those folks that are getting jobs in Augusta will want to live in Aiken. And certainly I look for them to come here. The housing market hopefully will pick up. But we have to somehow work with Fort Gordon, give a tour, and invite those folks that are coming in to come to Aiken.
Okay, thank you. Talking about trying to be business friendly, and this is kind of a combo question. I'm going through questions that have been submitted tonight and earlier from residents of Crosland Park. We've had the debate over the Hotel Aiken and the height of that building, which gets us into the question of a business friendly environment and what we're allowing people to do when they feel they need to do it to make money. Kind of pulling several questions together here. Some of the developers who may be interested in building more affordable or workforce housing downtown have said that they need to build their buildings 90 to 100 feet to be able to make them worthwhile. What are your feelings on the Hotel Aiken and opening those kinds of discussions to make it profitable for developers? Well,
City Council is now, I guess on probably the next meeting will be second reading for the 55-foot. It already passed planning. They did exactly the right thing. We talked earlier, Lessie either made the motion or seconded it, but it was exactly the right thing to go 55 feet. I think that's a case where, you know, the Shaws, to their credit, they went back to the drawing board. They needed so many rooms, so much square foot. They made it work by adding 2.5 feet. We remember the city manager's speech. Council did the right thing. They reacted to it, and so we're raising the height 55 foot. I would support that if I were on council. I support council for doing that. You're saying someone downtown 100 foot or 90 foot?
Not in the downtown central business district, but for workforce affordable housing in the central area of Aiken. What do you think the height limit should be on those kinds of buildings?
I mean, I can't imagine anything downtown. Certainly not in our downtown area. I think what we have is exactly where we need to be. I mean, I guess I'd have to know exactly where you're talking about. I don't even know from a public safety standpoint, do we have a truck that could go?
According to the question submitter, feet. We have a truck that will reach 100 feet, but I can't verify that.
I'd certainly have to know. I'd certainly have to know more about that too. That seems.
We could go peek in the fire truck. Yeah, at the fire truck.
Yeah, that seems.
What about you?
Well, let me just be quick with your question. 90 foot, no. Absolutely not. I would not support that.
Yeah.
The current height is 50. The 26th of October, we'll have another chance to support this roughly $10 million investment for Hotel Aiken. I made the motion to approve it on first reading. I'm willing to make the motion to approve it on second reading. The building is already 50 plus feet. We're talking about 2.5 feet. What? I'm sorry.
The measurements the building currently conforms with the zoning is less than.
I'm good with the candidates speaking to each other, but if we could keep it to the candidates speaking to each other, I'd appreciate it.
But let me just say that I have been threatened, saying that if I support 55 feet, that folks would not vote for me on the second reading. I'm going on record saying I will support 55 feet. And if that is the case, if 55 feet is going to cost me votes, then so be it. I talked about courage. It takes courage to lead, and we just can't run from things that will improve our town. This is good for this town. This man is investing $10 million of his personal money, not asking the city for a dime. And we've said, no, 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 don't come here. If I were some other town, I'd be running after him and saying, come here, we want you, come on. But this is going to be good for the businesses, and I stand with that decision to support that.
Okay. Let's talk about part of that debate that has kind of faded away at this point, and I don't think anybody knows where it is, but originally there was discussion of a parking garage. The parking situation in downtown was raised for now and for future plans if there are to be larger events downtown. What are your thoughts about parking and whether we need garages, or what is your plan?
I think the recent parking study says that as long as you don't mind walking 7 minutes anywhere, there's not a parking problem. But if you're driving down there at lunchtime and you're looking to get in and out, or you're a store owner, there is an issue with it. I think there's some things we could do immediately to address some parking issues, pretty much making Aiken a more pedestrian-friendly area, looking at walkways. I remember in Reimagining Greenville, Knox White's book, he talks about he and the city planner would walk and stand on the corner and they would look and they say, what can we do to make this corner more pedestrian friendly? There's a lot of things we can do. We can kind of support the local art community also, as Greenville did with putting some art pieces around. They say where the eyes lead, the feet follow. There's a lot of things we can do because there's parking on some of this on the secondary roads. If you get off of the 2 blocks on Lauren and you're off the block on 1 block on Newberry, there's parking available. I think it would require probably trimming some limbs back that don't hit you if you're over 5'8" and walking, so they don't hit you in the head. But yeah, I think there's some things we can do. But long term, I would think in the strategic plan, parking would be something that should be asked, should be addressed. I could certainly see that at some point downtown we're going to need to address that because people want to be downtown, but if you can't conveniently get to where you want to go, you do 2 loops and you may drive to the next place. So I think a parking garage would probably be in the future for our city, but right now there's some things we can do immediately that will relieve some of the parking issues.
Okay, Mrs. Price?
Conversation right now by the public is when you talk about parking, it scares folks because Aiken has not had a parking garage. Certainly, we do not need a parking garage now, but we will need one in the future. We have plans right now to start scouting. We are looking for the ideal place for a parking garage. There's no funds allocated for a parking garage, but it doesn't stop us from planning for the future. And I am convinced in the next 4 years, Aiken will need a garage. Based on what I suspect the growth will be in the next 4 to 5 years, this town will be thriving with young people, excitement and vitality, and folks will be saying to us, there is no place to park downtown. What a great problem. What a great problem to have, to say, there's no parking spaces, let's build a parking garage. So not immediately, but we will need it in the future.
Okay, very good. This is largely a North Side crowd tonight, sponsored by a North Side community. Do you have any special plans? And we talk a lot about downtown South Side, East, West, North, all being the same. But with the needs that there are on the North Side, do you have special plans for incentives to bring business and residential development to the North Side specifically?
Yes. Several things. And I bounced this around with a number of people. Small businesses. I really want to see more small businesses in this town, and we can do that, as I alluded to earlier, with giving some seed money to start small businesses and incentives, and looking at giving them a year tax-free. Being mindful of the fact that if we start doing that, there are other businesses, current businesses, are going to say, well, where's mine? So that is what I'm going to recommend. Secondly, we have a facade grant available right now for the businesses that are right here in the downtown area. You'd be amazed at the people that do not ask for the funds for facade improvements to their current business. That is available. Those things will help to grow the small business. And Tim, let me give you an example of something that I went to a couple of months ago, maybe a month and a half ago, where I saw small business at work at Perry Park. These folks are in business, they've been in business for a while, but they don't have a storefront. So certainly, just as the mill has done, and the mill, frankly, is an incubator for small businesses. I think in talking with David, we have roughly 4 spots available in that building right now. But certainly Katie and David and Maggie has done a great job in creating an environment with the help of the university for small businesses. But I think we can do more. But we also, too, have people working on growing our area and bringing more young people in the downtown area, too. And those things I'm not at liberty to talk about right now, but there are people looking at investing not only in properties to draw people downtown, which will help them, I think, to create their own businesses as well. But we can create those incentives. And I will tell you that I went in the back of your building, and I said the back, in the Summit Business Park, and there is a 25,000 square foot warehouse. Mm-hmm. Been empty for a long time. And I understand the owner is a philanthropist. And I have talked with some folks, and we want to approach him about whether that could be used as an incubator to go on a different scale. And as Rick said, we went to Raleigh, North Carolina, and certainly everything we learned at Winston-Salem and Raleigh and Greenville, we can't emulate. But there were some things that came out of that trip.
I think our red folder's waiting over there.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I tend to get on the tangent.
It's a healthy dialogue, that's fine. The question was for the north side?
Specifically the north side.
Yeah.
Speaking to kind of the crowd that's here tonight, what?
One of the biggest hindrances we have, I think, is what we need to run infrastructure so that it can develop more along that way. I think it's a natural way that we're going to have with the redevelopment of the north side. It's the way it's going to happen. We spoke earlier. Aiken grew in a very unusual way. Most places and most cities and towns will grow towards an interstate. Aiken grew away from it because of a phenomenon called Savannah River, the plan as we call it, right? But so you saw the development around down Whiskey Road and all the issues that way. I think in any other community you would have seen it from the downtown going towards the interstate. There's some infrastructure that needs to be run. I think with the new park, they're actually running it from 19 to get the water and things to it because we don't have, the city doesn't have it down. I think that'll be part of the infrastructure plan that happens, and that will help put those businesses there. And then when you have an anchor, you know, I talk about a seamless city, and I think it's important, and it's a real message. Whether you're in a single district or mayor at large, it's so important that you can go from, whether it be Crosland Park to downtown to Aiken Estates, Gem Lakes, Woodside, and every neighborhood feels safe. And every neighborhood knows that the law enforcement is there, they're going to be protected. And every neighborhood has a store that they can walk to buy a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk and do it safely. I think it's very important that we do that. I think pedestrian ways are important, certainly. We talked about the roads earlier. I mean, that's going to happen. They're going to get in better shape. I know it's frustrating right now when you go out and you see that every day, but that's going to happen. But I think the north side redevelopment is certainly the next thing that Aiken will see. I mean, that's the way growth is going to happen now.
Let me add to that, and extending to what my opponent has said. The city has purchased 118 acres of land, $1.4 million. And I am excited about that. We'll have to develop that property in phases. There's a track that will go around that with that development, with that Northside Park, close to 3 miles, along with an amphitheater, ball fields, and it is something to get excited about. Aiken did not develop from the interstate into the city because of infrastructure. DHEC said, City of Aiken, you can't flush one more toilet on this side until you get the infrastructure in place. So at that time, we saw a need to develop the south side, Woodside, all those development came, and the north side just didn't get the attention that it is. The other thing that we have coming is the Senior Youth Center. Another $4.5 million.
I'm gonna hold you to the 30 seconds on that one.
Okay.
I love you, Leslie.
Okay, that's all right. I understand. It's rules.
We have obviously the Crosland Park Neighborhood Association has sponsored this. One of the questions was, several years ago, City Council attempted to pass an ordinance creating a curfew to prevent children from being on the streets unsupervised from 11 or 12 midnight to 5 a.m. The ordinance did not pass. Would you sponsor a youth protection ordinance, or if one were to come before City Council, would you support it? Why or why not? And we'd give that to Rick.
If public safety came to me and said this is what we need to do, then I would support it. I mean, I would leave it to them. They're out on the streets every day. I mean, it would be citywide. It wouldn't just be for one neighborhood, though, correct? I mean, that's in your, is that right?
And this question was stated as specifically for Crosland Park.
I think it would have to apply citywide. I don't know that you.
I think constitutionally it would.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if that's what public safety said we need to get control and keep the streets safe, then I'd absolutely support it.
Okay, Leslie.
Some years back, I received a phone call from High Point, North Carolina, talking about safe communities and crime. And the officer told me that in High Point, they had reduced their crime by 50%. And there was a program. And he wanted to meet with me. That led into my setting for meeting with City Council, not City Council, the Chief of Police, and the solicitor and several other players, and Gail was in that room as well. And from that, we got a lot of things. And unfortunately, Scotty Richardson was shot during the same time that we had this meeting going on. So out of this meeting, the Safe Communities was born as a result of my working to pull this group together. And the chief talks about it as he speaks. That being said, our children are precious to us. We don't want to lose one child. And if it takes curfews to ensure the safety of our children, to keep parents from grieving, children getting raped, and all kinds of other things happening now, yes, let's institute a curfew.
Okay, very good. And just trying to run short on time, so I'm going to blend a few questions here together. But talking about our beautiful city, and both of you have had some opportunities to be involved in this issue. You from the county council perspective, you from the city. Rick, I'll let you answer first about Mr. Willing's junkyard on the outskirts, the gates of the city of Aiken. What will you do about, which is not in the city of Aiken, but what will you do to work with the county and the state on that long-standing issue?
Well, and it is under different ownership now. I think his grandson's running it, so I don't know what dialogue has happened or not. I thought planting the cedars and trees and the nice curb walk was a pretty good idea at the time. I mean, I really did. I didn't think that you might could park on the outside of that. That did not occur to me. It's a gateway, and it's important that our city you get one first impression, right? And I wish we could blindfold everybody until we got to downtown and then take it off and say, hey, here we are. Yeah, I mean, there has to be a dialogue there. I don't know. I mean, it's in the county. I think we would have to certainly work with our county, to make that happen. I don't think that would be an issue, though. And I suspect where there's new ownership, if we approached in the right manner, perhaps we could get something done on that. I would certainly be willing to try, because it certainly is an important corridor in, as is 19 and 1, so.
And from the reaction of the crowd, apparently it's on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
Mrs. Price, what would you do and what have you done with that issue?
Well, I have been part of the team to plant the shrubs, the trees, and I know that a number of people, this goes back to the June Murph days with the chamber, when she had a keen interest and many things were done, a lot of conversation, a lot of meetings. And it's all about approaches, I think, with people as to how they respond. And certainly we have a great city manager that is extremely persuasive. And I've seen some things done in the last few weeks that he's managed to turn some things around. And I look forward to him engaging there. But also Sam's. If you notice, they have cleared a little bit there, so that a little bit has improved. But I think the grandson would be willing, I think, to meet and talk and have some discussion, have some dialogue. I don't think it's impossible. I'm one that believes that anything is possible, and that dialogue needs to be held with people that have the kind heart to say, we need your help, instead of telling him and demanding some things.
Okay. We're nearing the end of our hour, and we've got some food over here that I'd love to share with you and the candidates. So at this point, you opened, so I'm going to let you give your closing statement of 2 minutes, and then Rick will pass that on to you.
This is a great town with unlimited possibilities. I look forward to working with a number of things, and I know this forum is largely planned for Crosland Park, but let me just address that quickly here. In 4 years, I expect to see Crosland Park a changed community. A changed community, much like Tool Hill, that we look back at Tool Hill and say, my God, what happened? And it's because people cared. And I see Janice, Ms. Nix in the audience here, who is one, she's a realtor, been working with Crosland Park, and she cares about that community. She's been trying to market the homes there. and I certainly look at the city's investment. One of the things that I plan to do, and I've mentioned to the city manager, is that we offer 25 homes, $5,000 incentive to improve their homes on an annual basis. That's $125,000 a year that we can offer that. Just think 2 years, we offer $25,000 to a homeowner, what that can do. And what you have out there are people that care about their homes. But they're making minimum wage, $8, $10 an hour. They don't have the funds to put a roof on the house, improve their driveway. So this $5,000 will go a long way. We offer the businesses here downtown the same thing with the funds, with the facade grant. Why not offer a struggling homeowner who wants to do something about their home? So I look forward to advocating that for City Council. But the other point that I'd like to see is, too, and some of you wrote down, as a result of us hosting this here, you said to me, you know, I rode through Crosland Park and the roads are awful. Yes, they are. But I said to the city manager, there are certain things right now we can do aesthetically to improve Crosland Park right now. The mulch, for example. We can just improve, put some mulch down, and I see my friend who's helped me give me some ideas in the audience. Mulch and planting of flowers. That says welcome and charm. So it's those immediate aesthetic things that we can do to our area. I look forward to bringing people from the south side, investors, to the,
These people are hungry.
to the north side in the downtown area, and they can come up with some ideas as well. I'm sorry.
Very good. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Mr. Osbon gets 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
No, I'll yield those 30 seconds to Lessie. We're fine. Thank you for coming out tonight. I know for some of you it was even more of a challenge than you anticipated, but you still made the effort, and I hope you found it rewarding to be here. Thank you, Gary, and your committee and your board for putting this event on. And Norman and Dumpster Depot, thank you for the food, and of course Everett Chandler for the water, which I've been the only one drinking. I realize that now. I'm sorry. I've been doing this right in front of you. It's a to offer yourself up for an office like mayor. It's something that takes a lot of thought and a lot of prayer. It's something that my family certainly had to buy into before I would be willing to do it, because I do have a young family. They're 16, 12, and 10. And I was telling somebody earlier, they still think it's cool to go door to door with Dad, so please nobody tell me any different for the next 2 weeks. But after a lot of thought, and as a business owner in downtown, you know, I love this community, and I think it's a wonderful place. I think we have a charm and a beauty. I want it to be the best. That's our goal. We should never want to be anything less than the best. Our goal should not be, hey, I want to be the third best city in the state. Man, that would be great, wouldn't it? I want to be the best, and I think we can be. We have so much to build on already. I think we need a strategic plan involving everybody in our community with input that we can all get behind together. I'd like to be the mayor that puts that together and in place. And then once we do, I do think, as we spoke earlier, I think it will give a boldness and a courage to elected officials to move forward. I think we will be the best city. I think, you know, I remember in the late 90s when we traveled up to Kansas City and did a presentation for an all-American city, and we won. You know, and we have a banner that's very proud out there, but you know what? It's starting to look a little rusty now, a little old. I think in 4 years we should have another one to put beside it. So let's be the best city we can be, and let's be an all-American city.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's give the candidates a round of applause. And I will say that I apologize, no lack of respect. A couple of times I called them Rick and Lessie. I've known them for a long time, and I called them by their first names, so no lack of respect intended. We do have two candidates that clearly love their city, and we're very fortunate to have both of them. Thank you very much for offering your service tonight and your service to our community. Now, everybody, if you want to meet with the candidates and share some food, please do.